When the Global Lyme Alliance reached out to me to say they wanted to honor me, my first instinct was to say no. Actually, my first instinct was to just run and hide. I'm not the usual success story that you hear about in these speeches. I'm not at the end of my journey. I'm deeply in the midst of it. To be completely honest, I'm in pain right now. And I was actually so worried that I wouldn't physically be able to be here tonight. I don't like to lie. And when I was approached to be honored, I feared that by accepting it and standing here in front of you all, it would be just that. It would just be a lie. Even after I agreed to be a part of this amazing evening, I had second thoughts every single day. I kept thinking, if everyone could see me on the days and days that I spend in debilitating pain, unable to get out of bed, they'd realize I really shouldn't be here. Then just after my husband and family convinced me to do some interviews to talk about what I've been through, things started to shift. I started to hear from other voices that sounded like me. Some who have been in the same struggle, fighting to hold on just one more day. Some that have lived in so much pain for so long, having no idea what's happening to them, that they start to actually believe that maybe they're going crazy. People have spent decades going to the best specialists around the world and still have no answers. These people started to reach out to me, thanking me for sharing my ugly story, because it either helped them finally start to look in the right direction, or just to simply say that it felt good to know that they weren't crazy and that they weren't alone. I have late-stage neurological Lyme borreliosis, babesiosis, Bartonella, and a host of other co-infections. To make that even more challenging, I have Hashimoto's thyroiditis, an autoimmune disease that was triggered by the Lyme infection when it unbalanced my immune system sufficiently to trigger the autoimmune mechanism. Living with all these multiple diseases has quite literally stolen my life. I went from being a really happy and fulfilled person to just existing. There isn't a day or even a moment when I'm not in pain. Many days are so excruciating that I actually lose track of the hours that have passed. And on the days where people see me out and about with a smile, they just don't realize that I've just learned to function at a level of pain that most people couldn't imagine. Every day is about surviving somehow. My mom's daily mantra, and mine, has become JSS, just survive somehow. This disease has affected my family and all my relationships in such a huge way that it pains me to even talk about. As someone with late-stage neurological tick-borne disease, I've joined a club of people with a stigmatized illness, one that many don't understand or want to believe, and that most doctors don't even want to treat. Having this disease feels like Groundhog Day, but in constant pain. It feels like you're standing still, unable to participate as the world continues without you. It is extremely isolating, and you feel completely alone, as no one, not even the people who love you most, can understand the pain you live in every minute of your life. So sadly, many times, along with struggling to survive, you also feel the need to defend yourself daily, desperately hoping to just be believed. The heartbreaking truth is that you will lose people on this journey. Some who can't believe that anyone could be that sick with so many different symptoms for so long. Some who just get tired of you canceling plans at the last minute. And some that just can't understand, why don't you just get dressed, get up, and go out and get over it? The sad reality is that when people don't understand something, most of the time they just don't believe it. Nobody can really understand unless they've gone through it. Those who stay, who really love you, who really want to help and try hard to understand your situation, still can't grasp what you're feeling, and many days you're left feeling isolated and lonely in spite of all their efforts. This leaves us feeling this tremendous amount of guilt. I feel guilty for being sick, for letting the people I love down so much time after time. I have no control over it. It's not my fault, and yet it crushes me because I know my illness affects everyone around me. And yet, as grim as my current situation is, I'm one of the lucky ones. I have doctors who are willing to provide open-ended treatment and stand by me no matter what. And no matter how many twists and turns this journey takes me on, I'm also blessed to have an incredibly great support system. I have a core group of people that have literally saved my life, even though they probably don't even know it. My closest friends don't realize that just by sending me a text and letting me know that they're thinking of me and are there for me can brighten my day even if I'm unable to respond. Getting weekly pictures of and videos of my beautiful nephew Gavin, who I don't get to see as often as I want, helps me still feel part of his life. My mom and dad, who have sacrificed so much in their lives to make sure I got all the opportunities they never had, and now continue to sacrifice trips and dinners all the time just to make sure that they're always there for me. My dogs, my boys, which if you know me, are my world, whose unconditional love give me a reason to get out of bed some mornings. And last but certainly not least, my husband, who's not only my best friend, but literally my other half. No one will ever understand how much he has sacrificed in order to be with me all of these years. They have no idea that moments before he goes on stage in front of 15,000 people, he was just on our bus, administrating some medical therapy on me that he learned and perfected better than most nurses I have ever met. My doctor's here and knows this is true. Only to go, finish his show, jump off that stage, come right back to help take care of me and our boys, who, as luck would have it, are as special needs as I am. His fans think he's a wonderful person, and they're right. They just don't know how right they are. But I know that there's so many people out there that are not as blessed as I am, and they don't have this kind of love and support. They are suffering in silence with nowhere and no one to turn to. I've cried learning how many suicides occur due to this unbearable life and how it becomes for some, and having no one believe in them. They just want relief from their pain and for someone to believe their story. This is all any of us want. So after struggling so much with accepting this honor, it is for all of those people out there suffering and feeling alone and isolated that I decided I must not only keep fighting, but also help bring awareness to this very real, very life-threatening disease that is so stigmatized and so misunderstood. It was my own feeling of isolation that led me to Yolanda's book. I used to love to read so much. I was always buried in a book. But for the longest time, it has been physically painful for me to try to focus on words on a page due to my visual disturbances. And sadly, I just slowly stopped reading. But I found a way to read her book from cover to cover. There was a sad irony in reading about someone else's struggle, while the simple act of reading itself made me in excruciating pain. But seeing someone else's pain mirroring mine helped me to focus. And it was the first book I was able to read in over 2 years. That's when I realized what the word alliance in Global Lyme Alliance truly stood for. For those of us who live with this disease that makes us feel so alone and isolated, to find a group of people who feel exactly the same way and still find a way to get up every day, to continue to fight, to get to the other side, that somehow gives you strength. Sometimes having an alliance to support you is the difference between those of us that make it and the far too many of us that don't. So while I don't feel much like someone who should be honored here tonight, I do feel that it's an honor to be a part of this amazing alliance that is fighting tirelessly to give us a voice and help find a cure so that others won't have to suffer this way ever again. So thank you so much for allowing me to be a part of something so much greater. Thank you.